Welcome back to our questions. We will proceed with our questions to David. David, we've not heard about risk implementation. Is risk treatment different from risk management implementation?
Thank you so very much, Brenda, for that question from our viewer. It's a very important question because actually this is where the rubber meets the road. Okay. Irrespective of how well the risk assessment, the risk controls are, if implementation is not done, then it amounts to zero. About risk implementation, we want to bring what we have been, what we had identified, what we have assessed in terms of the evaluation, and also we made a decision based on the analysis we did, and the evaluation we made a decision that we need to proceed to the risk response. Risk implementation is now where we take the action and try to control the risk. The most important thing in the risk implementation is what we call the risk management plan. Okay. Have we planned on how we are going to implement the risk response? Because we cannot just pick the risk response and throw it to people and tell them we need you to control this risk. Maybe as a strategic risk. It will be very different in the implementation from the operational risks. We need to know that the board wants to do long-term, for example, strategic plan, while now the operation department wants to do a safety measure temporarily for a certain chemical that is being used within that production timescale. So risk management implementation plan is very important. And when you talk about the risk implementation plan, it will include the roles. You can imagine we are implementing the risk management response without who is to do what. The roles, we need to bring out the roles that will be done. There is who is taking the risk identification, and once we have identified the risks, who are going to do the risk assessment? Actually, did that risk belong to us in production? Or we have identified it and it belongs to marketing. We need to escalate it to them. So we need to understand the roles to which people can play in terms of the risk implementation. And also the responsibilities. Who is responsible? Do we have the risk owner? Who owns that risk? Yeah, is it now the production manager, or is it the finance director? We need to understand who has the responsibility over that risk. And again, we understand that risks have a time scale. Yes. And we had said that once you see a risk from the horizon there, just as you see a ship coming from the ocean there, for how long is it going to take before it hits the organization? So if we have a risk that has a high velocity of coming to hit the organization, the implementation will be very different. Some will require almost immediate reaction, or others will need a strategic plan whereby we can be able to have them implemented. And the other essential thing is that implementation requires resources. Risk management is also a cost center. People might have the budgets for production, marketing, human resource, finance, but you find that now risk management is not allocated the budget. How then are they going to implement it? So when people are doing their budgetary allocation, then for implementation purposes or even the other processes, resources must be allocated. And implementation also should be considered in the whole process. If you are identifying the risks, we should start thinking, how are we going to implement them? Even though not really at a detailed kind of an analysis, but we should still be knowing how are we going to implement these controls. And also these key players. Who are the key players in here? Yeah, the risk owner, as we had said, or the risk actioner, because you can have a risk, or you can be the risk owner, but you can delegate it to an actioner who will then take action and do all this implementation and everything, and then report back to the risk owner. And also, in any implementation of whatever kind, you will have challenges. For example, when we are doing the risk implementation, one of the major challenge we have is resistance, because risk is futuristic. You're telling people something will happen. It is hard for people to understand this risk that you're talking about, and it has not happened to our organization. How is it going to affect us? So you find that there will be resistance. And we had also said there could be resource constraints. The board is saying we are constrained on the resources. We cannot afford to allocate money to the risk department when production needs money to buy materials to produce for supply of the goods and services. Also, you find that the risks bring complexities. There are some risks which will come and the organization have not even had them. And it brings a lot of confusion. How are we going to deal with this kind of a risk? If, for example, is intrusions by the hackers, an organization have never had people hacking into their systems. Now it is with them. It's so complex that they are even wondering how are we going to do this. They need to bring in consultants. They need to align and change their systems. All that now brings complexities in risk implementation. So all that require a lot of analysis into how are we going to implement, because if we implement it wrongly, then the risk for sure will come and cause a problem to the organization. Yeah.
Thank you so much, David. For more of this content, subscribe, like, share, and comment. See you on the next video.